So what do you think was the hardest adversity you had to overcome, you know, that really over your entire life? What's the hardest adversity you've had to overcome in your entire life?
I've never talked about this like on a podcast. I've done a few podcasts, but I never talked about this. So I had an experience with a rare form of anxiety called derealization. So basically what that is where your mind separates, like it disconnects from your body. So you feel like very foggy. It's kind of like being drunk.
Yeah.
Like all the time.
Yeah.
But you're not like, you know, when you're drunk, you're like kind of stupid. You're not like that kind of drunk. You're like emotionally drunk. You're like distant from everybody. And so it's really difficult to connect to anything. And so when I was going through this period, it was like even jiu-jitsu stopped being fun for me. You know, it was like nothing. I didn't feel like connected to anything in my life, and I wanted to, but like my brain had this like block. And so that was like a really difficult challenge for me to get through. That kind of made me, I was suicidal for a while when I was younger, because I was going through this period where I just felt super numb and super disconnected from everything. And it was just a really challenging time to get through.
How did you get through it?
So I worked with a therapist when I was 19, and I started going every week for a while. That helped a lot. I was dealing with an injury at the same time. So that was like, I was dealing with an injury. I was having a hard time in school. And then I had this episode with this anxiety, this like panic attacks and all this stuff. And, you know, then I kind of started learning. And when I saw the therapist, I started learning how to deal with anxiety. You know, I started studying philosophy a little bit, reading more. That's how I started writing, because writing helped me process everything. Like a lot of times when I write, it's like, you know, other people read it, but I'm doing it so I can just, you know, process the thing that I experienced, whatever day that is.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I started getting deeper into the kind of jiu-jitsu, and jiu-jitsu kind of gave me this like kind of thing to always look forward to. And I started to kind of, you know, reconnect to my surroundings because I was working through the anxiety, and then I was going to jiu-jitsu and seeing my friends, you know, so that kind of really helped me. And then I started competing more, started training more. And then I kind of just got so into like the jiu-jitsu, like so into what I was doing that like it wasn't like now I'm not, you know, stuck in my head anymore. It was like I just kind of realized like, hey, this isn't really as big of a problem as it used to be now.
Yeah.
You know?
Facts. I think people don't realize how important mental health is. I think to some extent mental health has always been, I feel like there's some level of consistency. I feel like it's just becoming more apparent in today's day and age. You know what I mean? I think we're more bold and more comfortable and confident in expressing ourselves and our minds and what's going on, but still I feel like it's not always handled correctly. I feel like especially in like the younger generations when we just immediately get diagnosed with a mental illness, and then it's completely redirected to just some pharmaceutical solution of like, just put this in your body. You know what I mean? Which I'm not saying that stuff doesn't work. You know what I mean? Because I've dealt with mental health myself, and then I've had people close to me go through with the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like just end it. And identifying and seeing depression and not knowing what to do. And then I think it's so key because there's a lot of different aspects to mental health. There's the person going through it. Then there's the individual that, you know, they might have one person they're very close to. So it's like maybe you're like, now you're indirectly wearing the weight of somebody's mental health, and now it's giving you some type of different aspect of it. Like, how do you deal with someone going through depression? How do you deal with it if you're going through the depression? And then how do you deal with suicide if somebody is suicidal? And then how do you deal with it now when someone goes through with that? You know what I mean? Like, because then you start to get into the blame game and wanting to assume responsibility. It's like, what could I have done more? You know what I mean? I know that's for me. Like when my first month opening up my business, my best friend, you know what I mean? Basically a best friend to me. Like he you know, went through with it, and I knew, you know what I mean? Like just all day would not get out of bed, you know what I mean? Like, and not crying, you know what I mean? Like not emotionally just empty, you know what I mean? And it's just, take this Adderall, or you know what I mean? It was like,
well, I think one thing too, it's like, especially like for guys, like depression presents itself very differently in guys. You know? And like we don't, like when you see like a picture of depression, it's like someone just crying and eating Ben and Jerry's, and it's like that's not always what it looks like. You know?
Absolutely.
And I think that, you know, maybe the narrative is kind of warped a little bit so
Yeah.
that it, are like we're talking about it, but we're not having the right conversations a lot of the time.
So what do you think are some key ways that if you had to help people to get through mental health and really just fight through it, what are things that you write or things that you found that can help people?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I get like messages a lot of times from people, and I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not a mental health professional. This is just my
your
ideas.
experience.
Yeah, so for me, things like that helped a lot. Exercise helps. It's an incredible antidepressant.
Yes.
Physical, and it's not like for me. I have to like maybe this is just me, but I need to do like intense workouts. I need to push myself to where I'm like ready to throw up.
Yeah.
That really helps me get out of my head, and I'm really immersed in the world around me.
Yep.
I also do a lot of like mindfulness, like meditation, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Nothing crazy, I'm not like gonna.
Do you like the Wim Hof method at all? Like
I haven't actually tried the Wim Hof method. I just kind of I just lay there and breathe, and
Yep.
kind of try to like just think about all the things that I don't realize that I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
And then, kind of the way that I have found that it works for me is I sit there, I breathe, I like start to work through all the, like your brain has like a bunch of files, right? It's like work, girlfriend, friend, whatever. And you work through all that. And then all of a sudden you're like, I did it all. It's empty. And then that's when you're like, start meditating,
Yeah.
So you get through all those, like you work through all the bullshit, and then you end up actually like kind of finding like this kind of sense of peace.
Yeah.
And that was, really helpful for me. And then kind of, I guess the last thing is, and especially for me as like an athlete, this was really important. I do a lot of like visualization, like trying to like it's like I can't win a world championship or do anything at a high level in jiu-jitsu if I haven't seen myself do it, So like I just like I've got an imagination, use my imagination to like visualize myself doing things. Like when I had this run at the ADCC trials in April, and I visualized that for 2 years. I saw the ADCC trials in 2017, and I was watching that, and I was like, there was guys who were making runs and they were upsetting guys, and I was like, I'm gonna do that. And then I visualized it, I imagined myself doing it, and
Yep.
eventually it happened. I'm not saying that it happened directly.
Yeah, I'm
because
big with. I start every day. That little notebook right down there beside you. I start every day with affirmations. You know what I mean? So I just write it down, visualize it, have a vision board over there, and I've done that 5 years. You know what I mean? And it's weird. It's like not everything comes to fruition immediately, but I'm a believer. I know, like I listen to a lot of Rogan, and he's like affirmations and things like that, almost to the extent of like saying it's pointless, because I think so many people try to like anchor themselves just solely in the affirmation opposed to getting into the action.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, immersing yourself into those deep workouts where you literally are just so exhausted you want to die. You know what I mean? That applies to every area of your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether it's jiu-jitsu or art or making music, whatever it is. You know what I mean? It's not only having that vision, but accompanying that vision with a insane work ethic.
Yeah.
You
gotta visualize yourself do it. If you want to do anything like extraordinary or anything impressive, you have to visualize yourself doing it, but you also have to like get out there and do the fucking work.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no other way around it. So